back to the course, and today we'll understand about the loops in JavaScript. The loops like for loop, while loop, do while loop, and also the looping control statements like break and continue. So without any delay, let's get started. So first of all, in general, what is a loop? A loop, if I tell you like a kind of definition, it's like nothing but a block of code that is executed or repeated multiple times based on particular condition. What I actually mean is that, I can give you a real life example like a grinder. I hope you all are aware of the grinder at your home. So the grinder is the best example for the loop, I can say, because whatever you want to like scramble it, you just take the pieces of it and put it in the grinder, and you just close the lid and start the grinder. That is what the loop it is. Like until the pieces are turned into small and tiny pieces, you will be just grinding it based on one of your particular intention. So that is the same is applied to the loop as well. Until some condition is met, the loop will be repeated continuously as the grinder will be rotating continuously. In the same way, the loop will be rotating. So that is what I can give you a particular example for the loop. So first of all, like loop consists of three parts. There is initialization, condition, and increment. I will explain all this while I'm doing it in the code way, so that you can understand really very better. First let's take one general example and understand what is actually the loops. First of all, I'm using a prompt method to take an input from the user, and I will store the the user entered input in the user input variable, and I will check for what the user has entered. If the user entered for, then I will try to run a for loop. If the user entered while, I will try to run the while loop, and if the user enters do while, so I will try to run the do while loop. So we'll understand what actually is these loops in a code wise. First of all, the loop will have three parts, that is initialization, this is the initialization, and this is the condition, and this is the increment or decrement part. First of all, once every loop starts from the initialization. Here we have num equals to 1, that means number is initialized with a 1. Once the number is initialized, then it comes to the condition checking part. Like let's say there is a num is less than or equal to 10, which means it will be checking, evaluating internally that is 1 less than or equal to 10. If it is true, then it enters into the for loop and executes what are all the statements that are present in the for loop. Let's say for example here I have only one statement that is present here, that is console.log the number. I'm just consoling the number. So here it will be 1 will be printed over here. Then this loop will go to the increment or decrement part, and here the increment or decrement portion will be executed. Now just recall your operators class. From there you can understand what is this double plus, which is nothing but an increment sign. So here what I'm doing is that num plus plus, which means I'm incrementing the number value by 1, which means num initially it is 1, I've declared it as 1, so now it becomes 2. Now again from here it enters the condition statement, the condition part, and it checks here 2, is it less than or equals to 10? Yes, it is less than or equals to 10. Then again 2 will be printed. This is how the loop continues until num becomes level. This condition will be this loop will be running continuously. Once the number reaches level, is it less than or equals to 10? That is a false statement, so it comes out of the loop. Until here we have done printing till the 1 to 10. So 1 to 10 numbers will be printed using this for loop. But what is the main use of using this for loops actually is that these kind of, like let's say here there are only 10 numbers, you can manually type the numbers, that's not an issue. But there will be some cases where you need to print like millions of numbers. In that case, do you really want to manually type all the numbers, or you will be using for loops for that? Using a loops is a really good idea, because we cannot write all the numbers manually. That is what, like, you just understand all these concepts in the programming as a mechanism. How we are using the grinder for a particular purpose in our home. We can even cut it in the small pieces using our hand, these kind of vegetables, and make it a paste. But that takes a manually lot of effort. But using a grinder will take out a hard part, makes our hard part easy. So in the same way, for loops makes our hardest part so much easy. So that is what the reason for using the loops actually in the programming. So understand each concept has a mechanism for solving a particular problem. That's it. And the while loop is in the same way. That is nothing. While loop is nothing but it's an alternative for the for loop. Let's say here what I'm doing is first the while loop goes through this phase. Like first we'll do the initialization outside, then we'll have a while loop. First initially it will be checking is number less than or equals to some value. Then if it is true, then enters the while loop and executes all the statements. Once all statements are executed, then the increment or decrement part will happen at the bottom of the while loop, and it again calls the come back to this condition statement, and this keeps on rotating until the condition is true. Once the condition reaches the false stage, it just comes out of the while loop. That's it. And if we talk about the do while loop is a little different while compared with the while and for loop. First of all, like in do while loop, the initialization will happen. After that, in the do statement, we first of all, without checking any condition, we'll just execute the statement, and after that, the last part of the do while loop, we will be doing the condition check. This is what the do while loop does. Like it is kind of like a post condition checking process. It won't be checking the condition at the initial time only, but later of the executing the code. This kind of code will be useful whenever we want to do anything that is really important without any kind of code checking, like condition checkings. So first of all, let's say there is a number 21, and without checking the condition, it will just print the 21 and increment that number to 22, and it just goes on doing that. Once the number becomes 22, then it comes into this condition and checks 22, is it less than 30? It is true. Then again it goes to the do and executes this statement, and this cycle repeats again. Once the number becomes 31, it just comes out of this, and the numbers from 21 to 30 will be printed. That is what the do while loop does. In simple, this is the loops in general. Let's execute this program and understand in detail how it is behaving. I hope you got this understanding. What is the initialization, condition, and increment and decrement part? It is the beginning of the loop, what it does, and the condition, it is also called as the end value. The condition is to be tested each time of the loop iterates or is performed. That is what we have discussed just now. And increment and decrement part is it's a value added or subtracted from the control variable at every loop turn. Control variable is nothing but this is the control variable using which we are running the complete loop. And let's run the program and see how it behaves. Now it is asking for my choice. Let's first start with the for loop. I need here 1 minute. Sorry. Yeah. Now here what it should print for the for is that from number 1 to 10 it need to print. Yeah, you can see that number from 1 to 10 is been printed. Now let's run for the while loop. For while we need to print from level to 20. Level to 20 is been printed. Now for the do while loop, 21 to 30 need to be printed. Sorry. 21 to 30 is been printed. This is what the for loop, while loop, and do while loop. And the only reason I can just manually explain each things separately, but I just use the condition statements from the previous class so that you can have a good understanding of the previous class conditions also, condition statement. So that is the reason why I have used these conditions over here. Nothing much. And if we try to understand the looping control statement, that is break and the continue, it is really more simple than understanding the loops. I'll just explain using this for loop. Let's say there is this for loop, and first of all why actually we need break and continue, and what is actually break and continue. Break is generally used for coming out of the loop at a particular instance of time whenever we need it, and continue is used at loops to just skip the particular at a particular statement. If you just wanna skip it, like let's say for example, while running this loop, I just want to skip the number 5 to be printed. Then in that case, I will use a continue statement to skip that number to be printed. And I use break in such cases, like if the number hits 9 or 8, I just want to come out of the loop. In that case, I use the break. Now if I do this one, num equals to 8, num equals to 8, then just break out of the loop, which means once the number hits the 8, it just comes out of the loop without even printing it. So here from number 1 to 7 will be printed, from 8, 9, 10, these three numbers will be skipped. Just let me comment this code. We'll run this code now. 1 to 7 is printed. Since the number hit 8 here, it just breaks out of the loop and it doesn't started printing anything from there. So if this is understanding break. Now understanding continue. If num is equals to 5, let's general example. If the number hits 5, I don't want to print the number 5. Instead of printing the number 5, I just want to print all the other numbers. So in that case, I will use the continue statement. What the continue statement does is that once the number hits 5, it doesn't go below this code. It just continues from here. From here, it just comes to this increment statement and again goes to the condition and do all the stuff what it does. You just keenly observe, 5 will be skipped. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is skipped, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is how the break and continue works in general. And these are really useful while writing our code. So pay attention. So learn this break and continue also perfectly. How we are learning the loops like for, while and do while. Mostly in general I'm telling we will be using for and while loop, not the do while much, but just focus mostly on the for and while loops. You can use any of this, but learning the loops is really important because it is like makes our life easier. We won't be doing the manual writing of all the numbers or anything. We can use loops in that case, so to make our life easier. Okay, I hope everybody understood all the things correctly. Thank you all. Have a great day.